So now we're going to talk about episode 2. Is Toyota in trouble? Or is Ford screwed? And when I say Ford, I mean all the Americans. Ford, GM, Dodge, and Jeep. And Toyota in trouble, or is Toyota doing great? Let's also talk about, is Nissan doing great? So let's talk trucks now. I like trucks quite a bit. I've owned a lot of trucks. Just this year, it's 2023, and I've already currently still own one truck, but I've already owned two F-150s, 2019 Ford F-150 Raptor and the F-150 Lightning. So I like trucks. I've had Rangers, the old model, and I look forward to the new model Ranger. It looks great, the new model Ranger. But is Toyota in trouble, or is Toyota just doing great? If you listen to Motor Feed went on just recently, I believe today, posted a video. It's going to be a 3-4 million view video. And there's a lot of good that gets said. And there's also some stuff that I find troubling. Some quick conclusions were made, and we're going to look at the real data, because the quick conclusions were made was that because Toyota dealerships have very few vehicles on their lots, Motor Feed concluded that means Toyota is doing an amazing job selling vehicles, and that because there are vehicles at Ford on the lots, GM has vehicles on the lots. And he did correctly and did a great job mentioning that GM has actually closed plants to try to control inventory. So now they're closing this. Now it's either the second or third time this year that they're closing a truck plant, because they've closed one plant for a couple weeks in the States. They had already closed one down south. And again, they're closing a plant in Mexico to control the inventory levels. So Motor Feed did a great job pointing that out, but he assumed that because GM has vehicles, Ford, Dodge, and Jeep, because they have vehicles in the lot, that means that they are in trouble, and that Toyota and Nissan are doing amazing in sales because they don't have very many trucks on the lot, and the trucks they do have on the lots are sold. Well, this just isn't the case. Car Edge did a really good job of talking about Toyota, and now I'm going to talk about the three. So Car Edge, love those guys. Ray and Zach do an amazing job. If you want great information and you want to make sure that you're listening to, accurate information, they make sure that they cover it based on data. So let's just go through all the data. And a little side note, I really want to point out in the Motor Feed video again, because the other video from a month, 1 or 2 months ago, where I was so frustrated, I was like, I just feel like quitting YouTube. He mentioned that Ford raised prices so that dealers could still make even more money, basically, so that when dealers, if they stop charging, basically how it was presented is dealers can stop charging MSRP because Ford has increased the price so that they get more money. I really need to remind everyone, dealers have their own profit. Manufacturers, a completely different business, have their own profit margin. They're not mixed together. And actually, what Motor Feed said is the opposite of the truth. I have access and I see every day dealer invoices. So that means the price, the receipt, the bill that the dealer pays the manufacturer. And while F-150s went up $10,000, the profit is very eerily, I'm not seeing any increase in profit. So I'm seeing a higher price by the manufacturer, and I'm not seeing, and I didn't calculate it, 2 invoices to the exact dollar, but I'm not seeing any change. And if there was an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, I think I'd notice. I would definitely notice. So dealers aren't making more despite that huge increase. They can make more than they were in 2018 or 2019 if they sell their units faster. Because actually, GM and Ford and Jeep and Dodge, they're not in this massive, they're not totally screwed. And And also something else that drove me wild in the video is it presented Toyota as not having markups. It actually said Toyota does not have markups, and Ford and GM and Jeep and Dodge have these, bloated full inventory dealers because they're finally getting what they deserve, because they had crazy markup and they still have crazy markup. And then very oddly, when he visited the Ford dealership, didn't seem like there was any markup on any of the vehicles in his last video. So I think the market is starting to adjust. Dealers are generally more and more dealers are starting to smarten up and drop the marked up prices. And a lot of dealers, some dealers, a lot of them, a portion of dealers never had markups. But here's the thing. Toyota actually is in trouble. So MotorFeed was presenting Toyota as like they've got no vehicles on their lots for sale because they're just selling them so fast because look, they don't have markups. Well, you can go ahead and watch Car Edge's video from today, very comically and very accurately showing major markups. They take a window sheet and they showed $7,000 of markups on a Toyota Sequoia through accessories. And actually, this wasn't just one dealer. They're looking at data covering many, many states because in many states, the Toyota dealership process, it's actually two different, there's two companies that have it's over 10 states total control. So they have two companies have all the dealerships over 10 states. So what does that mean? It means that they're throwing on these accessories and just one for, we've heard them all, the etching, the nitrogen filled tires, that kind of thing. But the thing that drove me wild was $3,000 for theft protection. Now, theft protection, the really good stuff, there's a product that you used to offer. And you want to talk a little bit about that, what it did, and roughly what the price was for it, what it's worth?
Yeah, which one? Just to make sure.
The tag?
The tag, oh yes, the tag. Sure, it's been a few years since I didn't sell one, so I don't know the price now.
$500-$600.
Yeah, okay, now it's that. Okay, before I guess it was around $500. So yeah, when you have the tag, they can do it mostly in the dealership, so it's easy because you can have it for the delivery. But some dealer, I know they don't offer that, so sometimes they need to go to another store that do it. So it's easier for you to take it at the dealership because it's all done when you arrive. You don't have to take another appointment for that. But at the same time, careful, sometimes you could have a better price if you just go somewhere they sell it. Sometimes it's a place that
yeah, that's a specific company, and it's only because they bought such incredible volume that they have a different cost than dealerships. So just generally, a tag should not be $3,000, and it's not right that a Toyota Sequoia costs $7,000 more than the window sticker. So right now, Toyota is still dealing with pretty high markups at actually all the dealers across, or pretty much all the dealers across all the states, because when you only have two companies having over 10 states of ownership of all the dealers, if they decide that it's $3,000 for theft protection on a Toyota Sequoia, it's going to be every Toyota Sequoia. So you can drive for hours and hours and hours, and you're going to pay $7,000 more for your Toyota Sequoia because there's, added value, an anti-theft system that makes it so that you can geolocate your vehicle, even if it's 10 stories underground in a metal container, is fantastic. It's not worth $3,000. It's worth $500 or $600. Paint protection at $2,000. No, you can't have paint protection that's spray on for $2,000. That's just not right. It's completely exploiting the clients. So it's very funny. Car Edge, one of my favorite YouTube channels today, same day as MotorFeed, is saying, hey, Toyota is in trouble. They have no control on a whole lot of their dealers. We're talking about all dealers at over 10 states, and they got a lot of emails from their community saying, hey, I'm in this state. It's not one of those two major corps that that own all the Toyota dealerships, but nonetheless in my area the Toyotas are overmarked. And actually the Toyota dealership in our area is having, the truth behind this is Toyota's having trouble getting vehicles on the lot. They're still having trouble getting vehicles delivered. So they're basically, how I view it is, where they are right now is exactly where Ford and GM were 8 months ago, 9 months ago. So 8-9 months ago, Ford and GM they were just struggling and couldn't even get all the trucks they needed to the customers that had ordered. Now at Ford, most dealerships will have delivered all the F-150s that they need to their clients. So they now get inventory, and that's why they have inventory, because they're being sent inventory, because their wait list, their order list has, everyone's been served. And once everyone's been served who is in the wait line, well, then you get inventory. And Toyota just isn't there yet. So I'm curious what Tim wrote.
Tim, just a
Has
moment.
it popped up on your screen yet?
No. It's been a long time since he wrote.
Okay, well, it just popped up on my screen here.
What popped up is that one. So Outsider Reviews ask, what are your thoughts on those ceramic coating and perhaps other add-on? I heard unless you're buying a performance car, it's not really worth it.
Okay, well, I think a ceramic coat. Okay, so yeah, now that's coming up. I think a ceramic coat is worth it on all vehicles, and I think it should always be a choice of the client. It shouldn't just be thrown on the vehicle and you have no choice and you pay whatever price is listed on it. So that is a great question. I love ceramic coats. I think they're very much worth it depending on the price. Now you can always ceramic coat yourself. I would only ever do it with the detailer, because the detailer, the only major issue you might have is if you get the wrong type and you put it on in the sun, you might have streaks that you cannot get out, and it's not going to wash out until maybe many months later. I've spent 4 hours trying to get streaks out because I applied it to paint that was too hot. It had been in the sun. I parked in the shade. I applied it right away and it got caked on. And that was an awful experience. Now, if you're going with the ceramic coat, which instead of spraying on, you kind of put it in a sponge and you apply it on, you can make a lot of major mistakes with that, and I would definitely let the dealer handle that. Now, if I'm paying for a ceramic coat detailer, that's a spray, I'd be willing to pay a dealer a couple $100s for that. I think that's very much worth it. If it's the applied model where you soak a sponge and you apply it, then that... I could handle paying $1,000 for it, because it's something, if it's the one that they guarantee for either 5 or 10 years, it's not just for performance cars, because it makes your vehicle get washed. It makes washing your vehicle a breeze. No longer do you need contact. You can just pressure wash your car and 95% to 98% of the dirt and grime will just slide right off, because the ceramic coat is very slippery. It's non-adhesive. It's very slippery, so you'll just blow away the dirt and the grime.
Am I wrong if I say that some people put it in the windows too?
Yes, you can put it. I put that on everything. Just it stays. If it can stay on your car for 8, 9, 10 months, it's probably not great for your system. So wear gloves, folks, and don't breathe it in. You don't want that gluing into your lungs, so wear a mask. That's what I suggest. Yeah, it smells good, but not everything that smells good is good for you. So,
and try to not sniff it too hard.
Yeah, try not to sniff it too hard, folks. So let's get back to Toyota in trouble. Yes, this is what's going on in the market. This is the real news, the data. GM is halting production at the Ramos Arizpe plant in April. They're saying that it's all about retooling to bring in more electric vehicle production at that plant, because in the near future, in 2024, they're going to be exclusively producing GM EVs by 2024 at that plant. So they're, taking some downtime, shutting it down to help convert so that they can build more electric vehicles. But, coincidentally, this will help them with their inventory, somewhat of a problem, because 2 other times this year, they've closed down the truck plants in order to control inventory on their trucks. Now, I can understand that's frustrating. It's okay if inventories get a little high and they need to throw deals out. In the construction, actually, Not just the construction industry, but the entire supplies industry. A lot of companies are starting to get a glut, an inventory glut. They're getting to the point where, and I actually really like it, Meet Kevin on YouTube talks about the economy and whatnot. And he used the example of a farmer's silo. I'm not the only one that talks about farms. So he talked about a farmer's silo. And he said, when we're in, the whole COVID pandemic, the silos were empty. And there was people waiting for grain. So yeah, things get really expensive. But now those silos are full and farmers have to decide, do I build another silo or warehouse? Do I build or rent out another warehouse for my extra supply, my glut of supply? Or do I put it on discount? So finally, some stuff in construction, some prices, looks like construction prices and overall consumer products are going to become, less affected, you could say, by inflation. Just basically, they're going to actually contribute less to creating inflation because there's going to be some deals to be had. So that's what I had to cover in regards to GM. So that's our GM news. Now for Toyota on the market, head at Toyota is saying, the vice president, David Christ, is saying is saying they're going to build every single Toyota they possibly can. But the problem is they're just not building enough, and it's actually affecting sales. So locally, the dealership is having all sorts of trouble getting models. The only model they can actually get is the Tacoma, and for some reason, they feel that the Tacoma in our area isn't selling that well. And Toyota here is at a loss of, CarEdge said 9% today. This was a forecast. It was forecast that they'd lose 9.7% of their sales. And CarEdge very adequately said and pointed out and proved and showed Toyota's losing sales because they're still on the over MSRP train. They're still trying to sell vehicles for way over MSRP for bogus accessories and charges. Yes, get an anti-theft with your vehicle, but at $3,000, total ripoff. A couple $1,000 or even $1,000 for just a little quick spray-on detailer that's good 8 months, that's too much as well. So anyways, they're throwing, it's the old story of being charged a ton for nitrogen tires where it costs about $8 of nitrogen to fill a tire, 4 tires with nitrogen. So it's rough. It's not pretty. Toyota is in trouble. They're having production problems, and that's why they've got a double problem. They've got production problem. So yes, sales are down by 9.7%. They're losing clients to other brands. They're selling less, and Toyota's selling less. One, because they have less inventory, and because they have less inventory, a lot of their dealers are completely out of control and have wild markups. So MotorFeed, you got the story wrong. CarEdge, you got it spot on. But MotorFeed, great video, very entertaining, and lots of really good points were made. A lot of truthful points were made, but the big conclusion was off. So the conclusion was off because it's just not the case. Toyota isn't selling more vehicles because of great prices. MotorFeed went on the Toyota dealerships he visited, or the Toyota dealership he visited, the multiple Toyota dealerships he visited. All the vehicles just had the window sticker sign on them, but they're also sold. They're probably customer orders, and why would you throw a markup window on a vehicle, a markup price on a vehicle that's already sold? It's already sold. You don't need to advertise that it's going to be sold for more. You maybe just break the horrible news to the person who's waited for months for their vehicle that, you know what, you waited for months for this, but it came in, we had no choice, it happened, and we threw on this anti-theft and these nitrogen tires and this, ceramic detail coat, and, you've got $7,000 of added accessories, so you thought the price, it says 36 in the window, you're gonna pay it 42. That's what's going on at a ton of dealerships, and in over 10 states, it's what's happening at all the dealerships. I can't say that at any point could you say that across over 10 states, every single Ford dealership had this problem. Why? Because the Ford dealerships don't have just one main company owning all the dealerships, side company. Remember, Toyota, the manufacturers don't own their dealerships. When you do direct sales, there are no dealerships, then you don't get the added service. And in this case, well, it's not Ford that's screwed, because Ford, from what I'm seeing, and even in MotorFeed's video, the Fords that were actually for sale, the Toyotas all seem to have sold signs on them, but the Fords that were for sale, there weren't any markup stickers on them. He didn't point that out. He should have pointed that out. Good journalism points out things that also don't fit with your story or with your narrative or with your conclusion. So Cox Automotive came out for Q1 saying Toyota's sales have dropped 9%. They had forecasted at 9.7%. So that's what's going on over at Toyota. And that's just the truth. So Ford, GM, Dodge, and Jeep, are they screwed? That doesn't really fit with my narrative right now, that this train of thought that we're going through, sharing data. Will they be? I don't know. We'll see. Sales are over an entire year. Toyota still has time to correct things, but it's awfully hard to correct dealers that you don't have legal right to control them. They're not your business. You can put pressure on them, but the Toyota model, they're out of control. Ford, because they continue to deliver vehicles to Ford dealerships. Well, a dealership that has, let's say, space for 75 F-150s. When they start to have 50 F-150s on the lot, what happens? They start to get nervous. They say, ooh, we're starting to run out of space. More space costs money. The silo's going to be full. Do we buy another silo, another warehouse, another parking lot, or do we lower our price? Well, the prices did lower a lot at Ford dealerships. A lot of Ford dealerships have stopped charging MSRP, and a lot also didn't ever charge MSRP. So that's the story for Ford. Now we can see here, Ford was forecast to actually, what do we see here? A slight increase. General Motors, an increase. And actually General Motors actually had a very good Q1. So that's the real story. We go down to Nissan. Nissan had a bit of an increase, not much. 1.2% increase. Ford, 11.3% increase. So let's just zoom in here. You've got Ford at the top, 11.3, Toyota down 9.7, General Motors up 15.3%, Honda down, Nissan slightly up. He had gone to Nissan dealerships and their lots were relatively empty. They sold a few more. So that just means that production hasn't caught up and isn't where it needs to be at Nissan. But Ford and GM production have gone up and sales have gone up, but they have inventory because, well, it's simple. Production has gone up more than the percentage of the increase in sales, but it's increased sales at Ford and GM. They are not screwed. But let's go down to Daimler. Daimler, are they down 10% versus Q4 22? Daimler down 10%. Okay, so yeah, that was for Q4, but Q1 22 compared to Q1 22, they are up. So not in trouble. Daimler overall change versus 2022, they've changed, they're down 0.3%, so a little down. They've got a lot of time to correct that.